how our psychobiology affects dating. Hello and welcome to this How to Love Successfully podcast with me, Dr. Maria Kovaren, a registered psychologist and a conscious dating coach. Today we'll be talking about psychobiology and how that affects our dating and mating experiences. But first of all, would you like to feel confident, grounded, and really present on your date? I have created pre-date bliss meditation. It is a way of connecting with yourself before going on the date. So that way you will feel good about yourself, you will feel grounded, and when you go on the date, you're able to be present and really engage that more playful side of you. And that will also help you to assess how you are connecting and how does it feel to be in the presence of this other person. So you can find all the details in the show notes. But now let's go back to the show. So we are talking about psychobiology and dating today. Let's talk about some myths that we need to really address first. We as modern women and men, of course, we like to think, especially in the West, we like to think that we live on our heads, we can rationalize everything, and we like to think that we are very rational people. But in fact, our psychobiology and the nervous system, everything was designed for that early man and woman who lived in caves. So everything was about survival for them, as well as, of course, connecting. Let's think about another myth. Us modern women, we have been told, and I grew up in Finland, which is quite a matriarchal society in many ways. Powerful women. This was the message always that I grew up with. The women are so strong and so powerful. They can do everything. And perhaps there was also a little bit like, we can do it all, even better than men. There was a little bit of competition in some ways. We have been taught that we can do everything, and perhaps we even in some ways should do everything in the same way as men. Well, whilst we are, of course, striving for that equality, and unfortunately, it is not always yet there. In the world of work, women's empowerment has told us that us women, we can do everything men do. Perhaps there's been even this sort of myth that we should also strive to be similar. And in fact, when we go back to our psychobiology, it explains that our nervous system, our body, the psychobiology of women is very different from men. Neither should we aim for behaving like men, because that leaves us feeling not necessarily good about ourselves. When it comes to dating and mating, there are certain things that are forces bigger than us. So let's talk about what affects our dating experiences. So now let's go back to that early man and woman. What was the purpose? What were these mating rituals? I mean, of course, we are mammals, like many other mammals out there, and you know of those other animals having mating rituals, and so do humans. We are not these rational people who are completely removed from our origins. So what is important for you to understand about the evolution and how humans survived and continued reproducing? So for the early man, the goal was, of course, to spread seed. And please don't take this as acceptance of bad behavior. We're just talking about what were the motivations for the men. The motivations were to, of course, spread seed so that the species would continue growing. But also then, if a man invested in a woman and she would have a child, unless he found someone he can trust, he would not know if this child was his. A woman can always tell that the child is hers because she carried that child. But he would not necessarily know this. So from the evolution perspective, it was important that he would invest in someone who was reliable. How would he know this? That she would be reliable and she wouldn't just say that she was going to be loyal to him and not then go and sleep with other men and have their offspring. How he would know that she would be reliable would be by pursuing her and seeing how she responds to that. So this lust initially is driven by our sex hormones. So for men, it's testosterone, and for women, it's estrogen. Lust is driven by these hormones. And then when we are talking about the next step from there, it's about attraction. And attraction is driven by dopamine. What is the feedback? Dopamine is a hormone that is linked with motivation. It gives you a good feeling to a man who sees a woman he likes and then he pursues her. And of course, if she responds in a favorable way, if she also finds him maybe funny, he will get a dopamine hit. But what's interesting is that he will get a bigger dopamine hit if she is not consistently rewarding him. Because from the evolution perspective, if she is not straight away giving all of her goods to him, essentially saying, yes, I like you just because you're funny. And if she then is taking her time, even if he continues to pursue her, this will indicate to him that if she is taking time and saying, yes, I like you, but I also want to see what more have you got to offer. So the reward is there, but it's not consistent. So it's like this intermittent reward. And then he will get more dopamine, a higher dopamine hit when she is responding in an inconsistent way. And this also kind of demonstrates to him that, okay, if she's not straight away behaving in a way welcoming him with open arms because they just met, and he has to put more effort in, that probably means that she is not likely to be swayed by these other suitors at the same time. So she's not just going with anyone, but she is setting a standard. She is knowing that she wants to see certain things from him before she engages with him in that dating and mating dance, if that makes sense. So he needs to know that she's reliable. And then for the early woman, what was important about him was that he was reliable and he would be there to provide when she has an offspring. Of course, today in the modern world, women earn more and more, and there are many women who do not need that provider necessarily. But he still has a very important role as a provider of emotional support, for example. So these days, it may not be so much about being able to provide physically and being protective, but it's also important that he is emotionally protective. He's providing emotionally. And how does she know that he is trustworthy and able to provide, whether it's emotionally or financially? She will find this out by playing the long game. And what I mean by the long game is by taking her time to get to know him and waiting for him to show up. And what we need to understand from the psychobiology perspective is that when we are attaching to someone, there are different hormones driving it. So for women who may be in this belief based on women's empowerment that maybe we should be dating and maybe going out there and having casual sex in the same way as men, please don't take this as a judgment. We're talking about here just about finding a long-term committed relationship. So if you're out there just to have fun, that is absolutely fine. But when we are talking about finding a committed long-term relationship, then it's important to understand that there are forces bigger than us. What's important is that you play the long game in terms of understanding who he is and what he brings to the table before you take it to the next level and the next level of kind of physical intimacy. Please don't confuse physical intimacy with creating more emotional intimacy. That doesn't work. If you have emotional intimacy, then physical intimacy follows that, but it doesn't work the other way around. And what you need to also understand is that there are different hormones at play when we are talking about attachment and attaching to that person who we are with. So from the psychobiology perspective, a woman who decides to sleep with a man, they get this oxytocin hit, this rush of oxytocin. This oxytocin is a cuddle hormone. It is the same hormone and mums and babies have when they're interacting. And this oxytocin is being released, for example, when a woman has sex with a man. So if you're not emotionally involved with that person, you will get attached because biologically, you are made to attach to that person who you have sex with. So please don't feel bad if you've ended up in a situationship which you initially thought that was just about casual sex, and then you ended up having feelings for this man. It's all very logical from the psychobiology perspective. And for men, it's vasopressin that attaches them to a woman. So it's a different process, different hormones at play. There are also studies that show that men's, for example, testosterone, remember that was driving the lust, is lower for men who are in love. Then they don't have that maybe drive to go and seek other women. And why do we need to understand all of this? Because it helps us to really know why certain things happen. Why is a guy able to both have sex and seek for a long-term relationship? So from the evolution perspective, they're able to do that. Does that give them a free pass to misbehave? No. So of course, then there are other things that will influence, like the attachment style, the early bonds they had with their caregivers. What are they relationship experiences like? What are their relationship blueprints? And I will be talking about attachment in another episode in the future to come, because it is absolutely essential to understand for your dating. So let's recap. So what you need to know is that when you start dating, there are certain hormones being released, and you need to play this long game. Slow burner is always a better. Get to know this guy before you then take the relationship to the next level and sleep with them, so that you don't end up in a situation where you have the relationship, all the benefits of a relationship apart from the label. And when he potentially says that he doesn't want to have a relationship, but you do because you've attached to them. If you found this useful, please go and share this episode with someone who needs to know it and hear it. I would also absolutely love if you could go and review this podcast so that more people will learn about this information that is vital for dating successfully and loving successfully. But please remember, give yourself the love you are seeking, and you will attract the love you want. Bye for now. See you next time.